The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome to the Lemonade Car Show. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. We're sponsored by OMVIC, Crown, Hotspot Auto Parts, and Sound Insurance. We have a whole half hour of Ask the Mechanic, always a audience favorite. I'm joined by John Raymond. He's a consultant with the APA, and Chris Muir, our professor, mechanic. You know what? Let's go right to the phones. We got lots of stuff going on, and this is always fun.
Hi, my name is Marion. I live in Ottawa. Just purchased Subaru Crosstrek 2019. And my question is, can I rust-proof it? I see you advertising Crown. Dealer was hesitant about. I wonder what's your opinion. Is it safe to rust-proof it and also rust-proof it door panels?
Okay, we're sponsored by Crown. It's not about advertising, so caveat emptor, we are sponsored by Crown. We believe in Crown anyway. I was with them long before I came on this show.
We have a long history with Crown. The product definitely works. There are some caveats because there are some brands that do not recognize Crown or other products for a variety of reasons. One, they say it may affect the rubber seals, or they don't want actually a hole being driven into any of their body work. The best suggestion is actually to call that brand specifically, not the dealership, because the dealership may
well, they want to make money on their own
they're going to try and sell you something that's probably a lot worse than Crown.
Yes.
So find out, even if the brand says, no, we don't ask for it, you could ask for Crown to be sprayed in certain areas to avoid bushings per se. Having any kind of rust preventative measure is a good thing. Crown is very good. And the other thing is most modern cars today have extensive corrosion resistance. But if you're going to keep the car a long time, protect it.
Especially in certain regions, like Ottawa is one of them, where it can get a little dicey with the corrosion starting early. And this is about transparency, because we've always said across the board that it doesn't void warranties, because the owner of Crown said that. But we've heard Volkswagen and Audi are getting sticky on it, and possibly Mazda in some areas, so that's why it's important to check. But it's also important for us to tell you as things change, and we're told they're changing, because I don't want viewers thinking that we're
Volkswagen
misleading
and Audi
them.
are voiding perforation warranties if there's a hole drilled into the chassis of the vehicle. And right now, Mazda is getting really sticky about anything being sprayed near the rubber parts underneath the vehicles.
So be careful. And Crown is staying ahead of, like, they're at the top of their game as far as new technology and the products they're using, which is why I still would put them, even if I owned one of those vehicles, I would still use Crown rust proofing.
And they have a good warranty. They do back up the issues that may arise. And also, we also recommend it for used vehicles. So if you have a car that's out of warranty, this really doesn't apply. I would say having Crown treatment will ensure that your car will last longer.
Well put. Let's go to the next call.
Hi. Can you tell me how you get any heat inside of your car when you have an electric car? Where does the heat come from for the winter? My name is Russell. Thank you. Bye.
Over to you, boss.
Okay, so Russell, it's just like your house. Sometimes the hot water comes from a gas-fired furnace. Other times it comes from an electric furnace, and all they do is they put a little electric element in the bottom of that water heater in order to heat up your water. Same thing inside of the vehicle. A lot of them are using a coolant anyways to cool off the electric motors or the battery packs. If we warm that up to a set temperature and pump it into the cabin, that's one way we can deliver it, or we can even just add a heating element inside of the cabin like a porcelain heater might have inside of your home. Two very kind of easy solutions to a unique problem.
And this goes hand in hand with, we've got more fuel-efficient engines now. They're not heating up as fast. So
That's right.
Our cabins, you may find, especially in this weather, if it's cold, you're driving, it takes longer to warm up, which is why I'm such a fan of heated seats. You'd be amazed at if your butt is warm and your hands are okay, you don't care so much about the cabin temperature. You don't need it as much.
This has become a huge problem for consumers. We get a number of calls at the APA, both in Toronto and Montreal, of saying, my car doesn't heat up. My last car was fine. my new car doesn't heat up. I'm driving down the road, I get to work, and it's lukewarm, and I think Chris can answer that reason.
Yeah, so as the engines are getting more and more efficient, we're losing less energy through heat transfer. So if we lose less energy through heat transfer, we don't heat up the coolant. If we don't heat up the coolant, you can't have any heat inside of the car because it uses that heat from the byproduct of the heat from the engine in order to warm you up.
So the moral of the story is spring for the bum heaters. We'll be back after this break with more Lemonade. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by OMVIC and Crown. This is a whole show devoted to Ask the Mechanic. So we're here with our mechanic, Chris Muir, and John Raymond with the APA. I'm just going to go right to the phone because it's fun.
Yes, hi, my name is Darlene. I own a 2009 Uplander, and a year ago I put in a new transmission, and now I took it in, and the $1,400, for car repairs. I'm not sure, should I put another 14 into it? Will it last me?
Okay, 10-year-old car.
10-year-old minivan. That has some longevity issues, let's call them that. They're pretty famous for coolant leaks, either from the front cover, the intake, depending on the engine series. They've got some deep-seated rot issues. They've got some pass-through electrical corrosion issues. They've got wheel bearing issues, steering issues, suspension issues. If the van is starting to cost all kinds of money, it is time to distance yourself from that particular van.
Okay, allot that money into something.
Yeah.
Certain vehicles are much worse than others.
Well, how polite we are today.
Chris is giving very sound advice.
Okay, so Darlene, don't put any more into the Uplander.
That's the answer.
That's the answer. Yeah. Hope that helps you. Let's go on to another question.
My name is Vernon Mahar. I live in Stony Creek. I had a Ford Focus in and got the water pump fixed on it. And then 127 days after that, I had it idling in the driveway on the first snowstorm. And then the pulley, I'm told was by the company, the pulley went on it. And it wrecked my motor, and I just had to replace a brand new motor, and I couldn't get no help anywhere. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, that is a wide open kind of question, I think of it. There's a lot of things to unpack in there. Do you want to address, we don't know what year it was. I don't think you mentioned it.
Yeah. I'm going to assume that it was one of the Focuses that has a timing belt on it that's driving the water pump. If the water pump was replaced and the belt or the associated pulleys weren't replaced at the same time, unfortunately that's not really something that would be covered by the warranty. It would be considered something that wasn't really touched. There's a whole bunch to unpack here. What exactly did the job entail? Did it come with a new timing belt? Did you replace the idler pulley? Did you replace the tensioner when you did it? All we know is one of these pulleys miraculously fell off and cooked the engine. Again, there's so much to unpack there as far as what went wrong. When you do a major maintenance like that on a timing belt car, water pump, all the idler pulleys, the tensioner pulleys, and the belt should all be replaced at the same time. They have all done the same amount of rotation, and they all wear out kind of in that same area.
So John, this is 4 months later after he's had that work done that this goes, what kind of,
Well, this is
that interval, what does that suggest?
There's a big question mark, but bear in mind, if the technician in question didn't perform the job properly, the problem would have manifested itself much earlier than 127 days. I think the real question is, what did they do at the first repair? A lot of customers go in for this kind of repair, a timing belt, water pump, and they decline the premium service, i.e. all the
bits that he just laid out.
Talked. And then they come in 2 years later or 3 years later and they say, well, I have this problem. And the technician or the garage says, well, we gave you an option. A really good repair shop will tell you the truth and say, this is what you need as a bare minimum. not to just sell the job, but to sell the job properly.
And to explain it to you and why you need it. Okay.
It's one of the things that we used to do is this is what the job requires. We're not going to piece it out because we're liable for the rest of it.
Okay. So I hope that helped you, and I'm sorry for the busted up focus. Let's go to another question.
My question is, I have a Ford Edge. I took it into the Ford dealership and asked them to find out why it keeps draining my battery. And they found that there was a module in behind the dash, and it cost me $2,300 to get that done. And now, a couple of weeks later, I'm having the same problem. My question is, do I take that Ford Edge back to the dealership and ask them to find the problem again? Or is it a better idea maybe to go and finance another Ford Edge or all-wheel drive vehicle?
Okay, well, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't think those are your only two options.
Yeah.
No.
But the first one, you're both nodding. Somebody
Although
gets
I
a
think
chance to fix their...
Yeah, certainly in this case, I mean, phantom drains, or parasitic draws as we call them, are or can be an absolute nightmare to find. Having sold the repair, the dealership should have done due diligence when they were diagnosing it, and he would have paid appropriately for the diagnosis. If at this point they were incorrect, they have a responsibility to correct the concern. So take it back, and unless they can prove it is two unique scenarios, do not pay extra on that repair.
Okay. And wouldn't, you can answer this probably, John. If that happens to me in one, I'm way less likely to go buy the same one again. I'm going to be a little gun shy.
Absolutely.
Isn't that why dealers and manufacturers would rather have a chance to
But this
put it right?
gentleman went to a dealership. The dealership is the expert.
Yep.
Okay, they do have a responsibility, assuming it is exactly the same reported problem.
Yeah.
They should repair it.
Okay. We'll be back after this break with more Lemonade Car Show. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by Crown and OMVIC. We're taking your calls this half hour for Ask the Mechanic. I'm with Chris Muir and John Raymond. Let's go right back to the phones.
Hi, I have a 2006 Ford F-150 5.4 Lariat. My engine is hesitating. It hiccups at about 70 kilometers an hour. It's been doing this since I've had it. I've owned it for 3 years. And I keep replacing the spark plugs and the caps of the computer on the plug, the COPs, and then it works good for 6 months, and then it goes back to doing the same thing. I mean, is this something that's known? I mean, it costs crazy money to have it done at the dealer. I mean, you're talking almost $1,000 to do them all. Can you give me a comment? Thank you.
Well, we can always give you a comment.
So,
wow.
5.4s with their plugs and coil-on plug design, having to replace them again and again and again, I don't believe that's your problem at all. Being at 70 kilometers an hour is a very kind of curious time for an engine to misfire or hesitate or anything else like that. I've got a bit of a suspicion that you may be either hunting a gear, slipping between a gear. It could be something as stupid as the torque converters locking up, and it's very perceptible at that speed. There's something else going on to give you that sensation at such a set speed. If you're replacing spark plugs and coil-on plug, usually you're going to find that fault while the engine's under load, while you're really trying to work it out. At 70 kilometers an hour, you're usually right around cruise speed. You might be merging on the highway, but you're not generally, towing a house down. And that motor makes lots of power.
What should he be going to the dealer and asking for it? What's his next step?
He needs to have it properly diagnosed. Don't keep firing coil and plug at it. It is not something that you need to keep replacing over and over. Again, those are, what, 130,000 kilometer plugs in it?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
And if they were fouled, you would know it anyway.
There would be something causing it.
What would be a good thing is to put that vehicle on the dynamometer and have it reading the functions as you go through the drive cycle to 70 kilometers an hour. Then you'd have a good idea in terms of sound and what's happening with the motor.
Yeah, check it against a known good vehicle. Have somebody who really knows those vehicles check it out.
Okay, so not getting the right answer, look for a different question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better than $1,000 every 6 months.
Oh, that's brutal. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Okay, let's go to another question.
Hi, I would like to buy a 2015, a Terrain, either anywhere from 2015 to 2018. I'd like to get a 6-cylinder. Do you think that, what would be a reasonable price to pay for a car of that, a used car like that? Thank you.
Okay. A Terrain. That's kind of a general question because we don't know all the parameters and the mileage and all those things, but where would we start? Where would she start?
I would tell her, number one, go to Auto Trader and get a rough idea what people are asking. Asking doesn't mean what they're paying. Go to Canadian Black Book and she could put in parameters as if she was selling her vehicle and she would have an idea what the wholesale value is or what she should ask in Kijiji or Auto Trader. The third choice is vmrcanada.com. That's the guide that most dealers use, including Services Ontario, to give you an idea what the car's worth today, what the asking price depending on the condition and the mileage. You could play what if games with that. It's a really good tool because they're getting their information off dealer lots and at auctions in real time. So
okay, so that's about the general how to sell, how to buy.
Correct.
This specific vehicle.
So the year range that we were given, 2018, that became a completely different vehicle. The earlier ones had some concerns with the powertrain. I don't know if you remember a few seasons ago, we kept having that same question about that V6 over and over. As it's matured, it's become a better engine. I wouldn't say it's class leading by any stretch, but it's become a much more reliable engine. As new and low mileage as you can get, and buy the GMPP with it.
So new, low mileage, and extended warranty. I hope that helps you. We'll be back with more Lemonade after this break. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. The Lemonade Car Show is sponsored by OMVIC, Ontario's vehicle sales regulator. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by OMVIC, Crown, Hotspot Auto Parts, and Sound Insurance. I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. We are in the last segment of Ask the Mechanic all show long. I'm with John Raymond and Chris Muir. Take it away, viewers.
I have a 2008 Honda Fit. When I start it, it runs a little bit rough, but if it's cold and I go to put it in gear, it stalls immediately. Once it gets warmed up, it runs fine. Thanks, bye.
So, actually, we were discussing this just momentarily, and I think you might be onto something. It might have something to do with the idle air controller being a little bit too restricted when it's starting up or not reacting fast enough. It could be something as simple as a throttle body clean. Make sure the check engine light isn't on. Make sure that the transmission isn't really kind of grabbing as it is put into gear when it's cold. It could be a fluid issue, could be a torque converter issue, but I think you were onto something when you talked about the idle air control circuit in it. Could be a gummed up throttle body, something really quick and easy to fix. Once it warms up, of course, it starts monitoring its air-fuel mixture a little bit more and can make those fine adjustments, but when it's cold, it can't do that.
So good first place to start, and it might be that easy to fix. Yeah, it's nice when that happens on this show instead of...
Isn't it?
And he paid me a compliment, I can't believe it.
I kind of stunned.
I owed you just one, that was it.
You got one right. Maybe this season I'll get one right. Okay, let's go to another caller.
I got a 2007 Hyundai. When I go to take off, the car hesitates like it's running out of gas. But if it's not in gear, it's in park. You can rev it up, and it doesn't do anything. Car's perfect on the highway. It's just taking off from a dead start. it goes like it's hesitating. I was wondering if you could give me an idea.
So that's another kind of curiosity. I would want to know, A, is the engine light on? Can we monitor the manifold pressure on it? Is it seeing that all of a sudden the vacuum drops inside of the manifold? It's really easy to rev up an engine when you're not driving anything. As soon as you apply a load to it, of course, it's going to react differently. It's not anticipating leaving the line, and that's why it's stumbling. It goes right back to your day when we wouldn't adjust the carbs right. You'd step on it. Thank you. You'd step on it, and you wouldn't get that little shot of fuel that it needed to keep the car going, and it would stumble on its face. So, but you leave the car in neutral, you could rev it to the moon.
Could it be a throttle cable? It's an older car.
I wouldn't think it's a throttle cable because it's actually making the reaction, right? He doesn't say he's putting it into gear, it's sitting at a light and he goes to step on it. So it's opening the throttle valve. It's something where it has to either add fuel or see it's got more air coming in to make the fine adjustments so it runs efficiently.
Or back in our day when we fed it hay.
Yeah, exactly. Run it for water. Check this, Steve.
I'm going to uninvite him.
Wow.
It's true. So.
I'm back in the doghouse.
Okay, so similar problems, two different answers, two different approaches.
Yeah, completely.
So, but they do sound similar. So
they're very similar.
Okay, so I hope that helps the viewers in at least going down the right line to get this stuff fixed. We have time for one more call.
Isn't it time for Ontario to have a lemon law, just like California and most of the U.S. states?
That was a little bit garbled and we couldn't really hear it, but I wanted to take it because it's important. He's talking about lemon laws compared Canada to the states. The states do have variations of it. It's patchwork. They're not all the same. Canada doesn't have anything called a lemon law. John, do you
Obviously,
want to
it's two different countries. In the U.S., each state has their own lemon law. In Canada, that type of jurisdiction would be federal in nature, not provincial. We do not have one. What we do in Canada have is an arbitration process through independent organization called CANVAP, where if you have a problem and it's defined on their website, canvap.ca, the owner of the vehicle can go through an arbitration process. There's a high degree of resolution in that process. It's easy to go to find out that information. It is online at canvat.ca, or you can contact the APA.
Okay, that's good information to have. We've got time for one more question.
I just called you before, and it was kind of convoluted, but the question is, will the clean air request by the government be phased out in April?
Okay, Clean Air Act and getting rid of e-tests is what the question's about. Chris, we've addressed this on other shows, but where are we at?
Well, we are definitely maybe getting rid of it, probably, but maybe not. We know absolutely no more than Joe Public and what's being reported from Queen's Park. The plan is to get rid of it by April. Whether that comes to fruition, we won't know until April, truthfully.
But now if you take it in for one, it's free.
Yes,
you don't have to pay for it. So that was the first stage of eliminating it, was making it free. And then they're talking about eliminating it altogether by April. But we don't know. So.
But it's a real issue because that deadline, what happens if I'm ahead of that deadline and there are repairs that I have to do that somebody else 2 days later wouldn't? So we get that type of phone call as well at the APA often.
Okay, well, when we know, we'll tell viewers, but at this point, we're not sure yet either, so sorry. That's all the time we have for Lemonade Car Show. We're brought to you by Omvic, Crown, Hotspot Auto Parts, and Sound Insurance. I'd like to thank my guests, John Raymond and Chris Muir. I'm Lorraine Sommerfeld, and thanks especially to you viewers